Good evening and thanks for tuning into Mirror Now. You're watching The Urban Debate. I'm Avni Raja. Our focus today is going to be on all the latest developments surrounding vaccination drive in India. And India is almost ready to kickstart that vaccination drive, as we heard today in the press briefing by the government as far as the Health Ministry was concerned. Now, India's COVID vaccination drive could begin as soon as the next 1 week. That's what the Health Ministry said, that based on the feedback received from the vaccination dry runs, they're ready to roll out the vaccine in 10 days from the date of the emergency use authorization which was given to the vaccines. And as per that timeline, that date comes up to be 13th of January. But the final decision on when the vaccination drive will actually start is still to be taken. But the government also added that health workers as well as frontline workers do not need to self-register on the CoWIN app. People above the age of 50 and with comorbidities will, however, have to register on the CoWIN app. But before I go across to my guests, let me get you what all the latest has been as far as what the centre said on the vaccine, the key takeaways. Now, first of all, as far as the vaccine rollout is concerned, like I told you, it will be ready to roll out in the next 1 week. The final date of rollout is yet to be decided. Now, the other point that was clarified by the government is that export of vaccine has not been banned. This is something, clarification that in fact came in. Another important point is that a committee has been set up to identify comorbidity criteria. So who will fit that criteria? On what basis will the comorbidity criteria be used as far as the vaccine drive itself is concerned is something that was also talked about. Then the other big issue, of course, is the clarifications that came in on Bharat Biotech's Covaxin. Now, remember, this, of course, has been a big controversy over the last few days. A lot of questions being raised on the kind of approval and the manner of approval that it has got. So the government has clarified, saying that restricted use of the Covaxin has been permitted. Covaxin has been found to be effective, will be effective against the mutated strains as well. Also saying that all proper scientific principles have been followed before giving the nod to Covaxin. Now, as far as the clinical trial mode nod to Covaxin that was given, the government clarified on that as to what it actually means. Now, essentially, what they say is that before administering the vaccine, consent will be needed. No placebos will be given to beneficiaries. Now, this is important because otherwise, in any kind of a human clinical trial, there are placebos. There are people who are given either placebos or people who are actually administered the vaccine. And that differentiation is something that is not revealed in terms of when that the clinical trial is actually going on. But in this case, everybody will actually be given the vaccine and all the beneficiaries will be monitored. Of course, those are some of the most important points. We're going to talk about all of these issues as well. Let me in fact go across to my guests who are joining me at this point in time. Sujata Rao, former Health Secretary, is joining me. Dr. Virender Singh Chauhan, Emeritus Professor, International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, and also Dr. Shashank Joshi, who is a member of the COVID-19 task force in Maharashtra. Thank you all of you so much for joining us. Let me in fact first go across to Sujata Rao and just understand, her perspective on what the government has said today. Sujata Rao, we've of course seen the dry runs. We heard today from the centre that we're all ready for a rollout within the next 1 week. What is your first assessment of how ready we are?
I think it is a splendid idea that the government took up dry runs in 4 states. That really gives much more confidence because it enables them to go and work out the last mile logistics and also be sure that every hook in the whole chain has been responded to and arrangements have been made. So I really am confident that in large parts of the country, the rollout should be pretty smooth and should be able to be a success. But having said that, I'm a bit concerned about the northern states. I'm not sure about how the huge gap in the health infrastructure and the demand that's going to be generated for vaccination is going to be met in states like Bihar and in states like UP and so on. If you recall, even in the immunization story, universal immunization program and polio eradication, we had the largest problem, and the laggard states or these northern states who really took many years to be able to, fully immunize the children. Even now, it's not fully done. So they do have infrastructure bottlenecks, and but I suppose if they made their micro plans, they should be able to override those concerns. The first phase I may not be problematic, but as the story unfolds and larger number of people have to be vaccinated, there could be a point when it might mean and imply, which is a factor that's worrying me, that it may be at the cost of routine programs like TB control, malaria, whatever, and routine immunization program, because then the number of people you're dealing with would be much larger than what our current infrastructure of vaccinators are available. So I think they will have to expand simultaneously.
Right. Dr. Chauhan, let me come to you here. Just the point that Sujata Rao was mentioning that all right, I will go back to Dr. Chauhan in just a bit, but let me go across to Dr. Joshi now. Dr. Joshi, the point that Sujata Rao was mentioning here with respect to that, we might see the first phase go off pretty smoothly because a lot of the people who are going to be vaccinated in the first phase have already been registered on the app. Everything's largely sorted out. But going forward, post that, there could be challenges that crop up. We've also seen these challenges, certain challenges crop up in some of the Western countries which have started their drives as well. What is your own sense of the kind of challenges we could be facing?
So I think though the concerns may be valid, I think the government is reasonably well prepared to circumvent all these challenges. India has a very good history of immunization. We have been the world leaders in execution of immunization. The three bottlenecks which we see is, unlike the other vaccines like oral polio, this is an injection and we have to give 2 doses. They have used digital platform this time, which will be a very unique app, and that would be there. Only in remote areas, rural areas, there could be challenges, but I'm certain that each and every minute detail has been looked at. And I think these micro challenges, even in the dry runs, were looked at and they have been circumvented. So I'm reasonably confident that the first 30 crores will not be a challenge. Madam was saying that the first 1 and 2 crores of the frontline workers and healthcare workers should be smooth. But I feel the first 30 crores won't be a challenge. Yes, in some geographies, there might be some hindrances. But, the early learnings in this month, where the first 3 crores will be given, will allow us to ensure that we are better equipped. And by which time the winter will recede. And I think in 3.5 to 4 months, we should be able to vaccinate this 30 crore population, which is the first target of the government.
Okay. All right. Let me, in fact, Sujata Rao, the other point, of course, is the issue as far as Covaxin is concerned, and the nod it has got. That has also been a big point of, row that erupted over the last few years. So certain questions being raised, really. Today, there has been some clarification coming in from the centre in terms of how that's going to be, conducted. Your own sense of the fact that this means that it is going to be a sort of a clinical trial, but there's going to be no placebo that is going to be administered, and people will have to give consent.
You can't just use words because you know the language. What is a clinical trial? There is a certain definition and there is a certain understanding of what a clinical trial is. That means you administer a certain vaccine, you have a control group against which you're comparing the outcomes, and you do this on a large sample of, say, 30,000 people, and that gives you the efficacy of the vaccine. Means, is the immunity enough? For how long will that immunity last? And several other sets of data, which is very clear, which is very important to know whether this is an efficacious vaccine to be taken. Now, there is a certain logic for phase 3, but the way you cannot just simply dispense it and say, oh, well, it is safe because we saw it on phase 2, and it doesn't produce it produces immunogenicity because of the phase 1 and 2 trials. So then why do you have the protocol of phase 3? Don't have it then. So, once there is a certain protocol laid, I am a conservative person maybe, but I do believe that even though, despite the fact that there is such an emergent situation, we should not compromise on these 3 phases. Even the United States, which is the biggest sufferer of COVID in terms of both deaths and caseloads, the FDA did not give approval till such time that both Moderna and Pfizer were able to provide the phase 3 results to them. They didn't cut corners. They only speeded up the processes. and that is valid and that's good. Even during H1N1, I was secretary at that time, we insisted that Pfizer should do at least on 500 people and show their efficacy in the Indian population. So, this is a very important process, and I really don't understand. I'm unable to understand why the government is in such a hurry and why we could not wait for 2 months to give that comfort. Lastly, I would like to make one more point. They may be having some reasons. After all, the SEC consists of eminent people and they've cleared it, and I don't have any conspiracy theories here. I'm sure it's all done in good faith. I'm willing to give them that benefit of doubt. That's good, and I admire them for their faith and trust. But the point is, the people have to trust it. And when the DCGI holds a press meet, he should take questions and answer them, not just simply say this is it and leave. So when you don't give information to the people, then all sorts of theories come up in everyone's mind, and they say, why is the government hiding data? Why is this hurry? Why is this happening? And once there's a breakdown of trust, then it becomes difficult for anyone to want to take a vaccine because you don't know what you're taking. So I think communication, transparency, putting out whatever data and reasoning that the government adopted for giving this out of the way clearances for both the vaccines it will be a very good and a positive step, because I personally don't think that this vaccine is going to harm anyone. What they've done, both the companies, both Biotech and the Serum, are outstanding companies. They can match the best in the world. But having said that, the past reputation doesn't justify cutting corners.
Right.
And I do believe that we need to be safe.
Okay. Dr. Chauhan is with us now. Dr. Chauhan, your view on the same issue here, given the kind of questions that have been raised over the Bharat Biotech vaccine and what we heard today from the centre about what it means to get this special nod that Bharat Biotech has got, and the whatever will be administered will be in the form of a clinical trial without placebo but with consent. Do you think that is clarification enough? Do you think that's okay to go ahead with?
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with what Sujata has said. And you just explained the center, the government has now explained what is going to be like. So I think this is the broader issue. The vaccines are something hugely important issues, in the sense when you roll out vaccines, you roll out to very large number of people. So what Sujata said, we all have said for the past 2 days, that the transparency of communication and as much communication as possible you should deliver. And that's it. But since the point has been debated so much in the media, I would simply say this, that we should now move on from this point onwards. Both companies are good. The so-called war is being now truce. And I think we should just look forward to this vaccine being rolled out. If you have any specific question about the vaccine itself, I'll be happy to answer. The communication should have been much more clear, and now it has been clarified. So I think this matter should end here.
All right, Dr. Chauhan and all our guests, do stay with us. I want to speak about the other aspect also that the government addressed today, which is explaining the entire process of rollout. Now, of course, with the rollout, it's ready for rollout in the next week or so is what we were told. And the centre also explained that entire process, what it's going to be like. Let me, in fact, go across to my colleague Seher, who's joining us at this point in time. Seher, help us understand, how is the vaccine going to reach people? What is the entire process that the government has explained?
Yes, good evening, Avni. It's a very important process, but it is also a long, detailed process. And while we understand this process, we would only further appreciate why the dry runs were being conducted as well. Because it's a process where there cannot be a break in the chain. It's important that this is literally step to step. And we're looking at total about 5 steps here that we're going to explain on what's the process here. First is, of course, from the manufacturer, the vaccine goes to the main storehouse. This is to be transported by air to 4 primary stores across India, 4 identified primary stores across India directly from the manufacturers. So if you're looking at the SII and the Bharat Biotech right now, it goes directly from their units to the 4 primary stores across India. The second step here is from these primary stores, it then needs to go across to all the states. And once again, this is going to be in maintaining refrigerated vans, the cold storage chain that should not break. It has to be connected throughout the process here. So refrigerated vans are to transport it then to the state vaccine stores. This is across all states. In the third step, from the state stores, it goes to then the districts. Once again, a very detailed process here. This is why also we had dry runs, not just in capital cities, but in smaller districts here as well. That is how this process has helped. So refrigerated vans will then transport it to these district stores as well. In step 4, once again, refrigerated vans there to transport it to primary health centers here, which is just yet another step here from where the administration of the shot is to be done from the primary health centers. Then it goes to sub-centers, ice boxes then. From the vans, we've come down to smaller areas, so ice boxes here to transport it then finally to the vaccination centers. Now, at the vaccination centers, that is a whole set of different processes to be followed, but this is in explaining as far as the transport, the movement of the vials is concerned there. Avni.
All right, Sahir, thank you so much for taking us through all of those details. So that is really the entire process that's going to be followed to get the vaccine to all the people who have to be administered the vaccine. This is how what the dry runs were to ensure that there are no loopholes as far as the process is concerned. But let's turn our attention to the other issue that was just brought up as well by our guest, Dr. Chauhan here, which is the joint statement that came in from the Serum Institute of India and Bharat Biotech today. Now, in fact, vaccine manufacturers, Bharat Biotech and the Serum Institute buried the hatchet following a public war of words between the two firms yesterday. In fact, both the firms today issued this joint statement this afternoon after Bharat Biotech CMD Krishna Ella had questioned Serum's data and trials on Monday. And as per the joint statement, both the companies have pledged towards a smooth rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines, and they say the vaccine development activities will be as per plan.
It was a day of truce for 2 of the largest vaccine manufacturers in India when CEO of Serum Institute tweeted that a joint statement will be issued by both MD of Bharat Biotech and CEO Serum Institute. This development came a day after both took a pot shot at each other, saying the vaccine of Bharat Biotech lacked the immunogenicity and efficacy, but at the same time the Bharat Biotech MD called out AstraZeneca's vaccine, saying they gave paracetamol during the trial to suppress adverse events. In the statement which was made, it has been said that both companies will continue to roll out the vaccine program as planned, and in future, we are being told by the health ministry sources, we won't see the constant bickering taking place. The verbal volley which was taking place was also putting at stake the DCGI's reputation, because currently India is one of the largest vaccine manufacturers, and if this could have continued, the reputation of DCGI would have been dented. And currently the sources are indicating that both these companies will continue to manufacture the vaccine and there will be no pot shots taken at each other.
All right, well, that was the latest update as far as that tussle between both the companies is concerned. But Dr. Joshi, when this war of words really broke out in the joint statement finally that happened today, of course, now it is a truce has been called. But when it happened, was it something that was concerning?
No, I think this was completely uncalled for. And I think we all have to work as Team India. We should be proud of these two companies and Indian manufacturers. 50% of vaccines in the world are coming from India. We have done far better than United States, United Kingdom, Europe in COVID. So we should be proud of our country. And I think we should be proud of our innovation. Serum is going to make many more vaccines, just not COVID-1, but they will make many more COVID vaccines. And Bharat Biotech is one of the top firms in vaccine in the world. They discovered chikungunya vaccine. They have discovered rotavirus vaccine. So both these companies are world leaders. And I think we should be very proud of our heritage. In fact, I feel that both these vaccines are very safe. I would not hesitate to take either of them. I don't agree with either of my panelists that they would have concerns. I don't think our government has run any shortcuts. We were not privy to the SEC minutes, but I have full faith in our Drug Control General of India also. So we should put behind all these controversies and we should look at positivity and we should move ahead with this.
Okay. Sujata Rao, I mean, coming back to what we heard my colleagues speak about, the entire process of the vaccination drive that is planned to take place. We, of course, did see the dry runs that happened as well. But now going forward, in terms of what's going to happen in the first phase, the kind of eligibility criteria that the centre has talked about today, saying that the healthcare workers and the frontline workers will automatically be registered on the CoWIN app. And then after that, it is going to be important for those who are not part of that first group to self-register. And the also issue which I wanted to ask you about is specifically with regard to the comorbidities issue, and for which a committee has now been formed to assess that. What is your sense of how that should really roll out in terms of deciding somebody who has comorbidities and falls into either the above 50 or the below 50 age category?
It's going to be a very major challenge. The Prime Minister said we can use the election method and take the electoral rolls, and then from there you start the process of line listing. But it's not so easy, and it's going to be problematic because it's not as if every Indian has been diagnosed with his comorbidities. And particularly the health systems are very weak in UP and Bihar. And in Madhya Pradesh, large pockets of Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, it's quite a challenge in those states to be able to really make a line listing of all those who are under 50 and have comorbidities. That's not, it's going to be difficult. But having said that, I think as they go along, they will start diagnosing more and more people and to come down and, make that list. But right now, when they're going to be focusing on healthcare givers, I think that will itself give them some kind of an experience of what the challenges are being proved. Because my worry is not the plan. The plan is beautiful and it's very nice and it's very well done, in the sense that this is the plan that we've been following from immunization program for the last 2 decades. There's nothing new. The manufacturers send it to a storage goes to district goes there, and that all those stages are well known, the infrastructure is there, and COVID is rightly being piggybacked on the existing infrastructure. That's all excellent. But it's always the challenge in implementation has always been the last mile. Who are the vaccinators? Is it only going to be the ANM who has not even been able to complete the childhood vaccinations? Now the whole population has to be taken on. So, are we going to have some more vaccinators? These are the kind of challenges of the last mile micro level team formations, and they're seeing that they work in harmony. And then the electricity issues in these northern states. You may have a very good on real-time monitoring through computers and internet, but the point is that the cold chain and all has to work with electricity not breaking down. So there are a lot of these operational problems which I'm sure they will be handled, but they will be challenges. You can't say it's challenge-free, and I think the part of the game. But as to your question, identification of below 50s having comorbidities is going to be difficult, and it's going to be a challenge which they'll have to work out somehow of doing it, because that infrastructure, the last mile, does not exist, and they'll have to develop some ways of doing it, particularly in the northern states.
Right. Dr. Chauhan, similar question in terms of the concerns as far as the challenges that could arise as and when we progress to the next few phases of the vaccination drive. And of course, the fact the cold storage chain, which has already been an issue for India in the past. Of course, a lot has now been done to ramp it up for the vaccines, obviously. But what do you see as some of the bigger challenges going forward to the next phases, phase 2 onwards?
I'm going to give a more precise and shorter answer. Simply, the science of the discovery of the vaccines, manufacturing of the vaccines, taking it to animal toxicity and for human trials were relatively easier portion. No matter which country you are, India, of course, offers a bigger challenge because we are going to take a mammoth complex operation. But no matter which location in the globe you are, it is going to be a complicated process. And I think we should be just prepared for a very complex. Glitches will happen, glitches will be overcome. So I'm not going to worry too much about let the vaccine be rolled out. Initially, it will be done in places where vaccination can be handled easily. That is in the health workers, in hospitals and so on. I'm not too bothered about what, of course, there will be problems. Where US has just done 4 million so far, they were supposed to have done 30 million by now. So it's like running ahead of ourselves. The vaccination hasn't begun. Government has done dry runs, and expect anything that can go wrong is likely to go wrong. But all the precautions have been taken. The whole lengthy procedures have been described. You yourself described just now what the procedure would be. So let's wait. The good news is the vaccination will begin in 7 days' time. And as the problems happen, I don't want to predict many more problems. Problems will happen. And as I said, this is the most complex phase of vaccine development all over the world. I mean,
Yes.
you still have to roll it out in African countries. You have to roll out in resource-poor countries. If resource-rich countries are struggling, France was struggling to start vaccination.
Yes.
So I'm not. This should not be a major concern.
All right. Dr. Joshi, just taking that point forward, at this point in time, of course, one issue is going to be of actually the data that is being collected of the people who have to get vaccinated, because like we just pointed out, it's a 2-dose vaccination process that has to happen. And in the past, a lot of the big vaccination drives, whether we looked at polio or any other vaccination drive, for example, has not been of A, this kind of scale and magnitude, and B, of this way of a 2-dose vaccination process that is going to be there this time. And that is going to come with its own challenges. The whole thing is, of course, digitized, but nonetheless, it is going to be difficult.
That is very true, but I think some of the other states across India have taken some measures to collect the data. For example, in the month of September, October, we rolled out a scheme in Maharashtra, My Family, My Responsibility, and we wanted to reverse isolate all the vulnerable groups, which is people above 50 and people below 50 with comorbidities. So this database for the state of Maharashtra is fully ready already. So out of the 30 crores, all the people from Maharashtra who fit into category 1, 2 and 3, which is healthcare workers, frontline workers, as well as people above 50 or people below 50 with comorbidities already ready. I think many states across India have done this homework in advance. And I agree with Sujata madam that this might be challenges in some remote geographies. But I think government of India also has primed them for the last month and a half to 2 months. And if the state governments have been updated with this current database, I think we will see this. This is a calibrated approach. It's a very step down approach. And by the time we want to go to the last mile and to the people who deserve it the most, at least the vulnerable population, which is the first 30 crores, will be covered. And further on also the database will be collected. Also remember that it is a digitalized app which is very easy to use. But in some parts, internets will be a challenge. Connectivity will be a challenge. So there will be hurdles. But I think we are also solution providers. We run one of the best electoral processes across the world. I'm reasonably certain that we'll do better than US and Europe in this regard. And I'm very confident of our infrastructure and machinery. I think we should trust our infrastructure and machinery. There will be hurdles, but we'll overcome them. I'm very optimistic.
All right. On that note, I'd like to thank all my panelists for joining in on this discussion. Of course, a lot is going to continue to be discussed as far as the vaccines are concerned and the rollout begins. But the fact is the countdown for the vaccine rollout has in fact started. But quickly, let's also tell you what happened in the press conference today, in the press briefing, some of the important points that were highlighted. Now, allaying concerns over Bharat Biotech's Covaxin, the government said that scientific principles and rigor was followed in the North Covaxin and it will be effective against mutated strain. On the clinical trial North Bharat Biotech's Covaxin, the government said that the consent of the beneficiaries will be needed and no placebo will be given.
Covishield is safe and immunogenic, and the data showed that it is non-inferior to the UK product. So this is an important point which led to the approval. The phase 3 clinical trial is for 25,800 participants. 24,000 have been enrolled, and there are no safety concerns. They have been given their first dose, and more than 5,000 have been given the second dose. And restricted use has been given in clinical trial mode for this, which means, what does this restricted use in clinical trial mode means? That they have to give a consent, and there has to be a regular follow-up of these patients.
The Union Health Ministry today held a press conference in which it made it clear that from today till next 10 days, it is ready to roll out the mass vaccination program. The emergency use authorization has been given to 2 vaccines on 3rd of January, and as per the schedule, by 13th of January or 14th of January, we can expect the vaccination program to start. But of course, the last call will be taken by the center. At the same time, the Health Ministry seemed to be suggesting that in the current phase, the COVID application is ready, and all those people who are in the frontline group as well as healthcare group don't need to register themselves. But the priority group remains of 50 and comorbidity, for which the comorbidity is still being decided by committee of 2 members. Currently, it has been said that there are 2 vaccine candidates, and their permission has been given because the data suggested that vaccines were safe. The Health Ministry and the DGICMR defended the decision of Covaxin. Despite being controversial, the Covaxin has been said that it is safe and phase 3 data will be out soon. The ministry said that in the coming days, we can expect the vaccine rollout, and the preparation for that are in last phase.
Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has reimposed a nationwide lockdown until the end of January owing to a surge in coronavirus cases in the UK. Boris Johnson also cancelled his visit to India in order to focus on the domestic response to the virus. The British Prime Minister, remember, was scheduled to be the chief guest at India's Republic Day celebrations on the 26th of January.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's visit to India has become the latest casualty of the COVID pandemic. Boris Johnson telephoned Prime Minister Modi to inform him that he will not be able to make that journey to India as the chief guest for the Republic Day celebrations. Well, this personal and direct approach by the UK Prime Minister comes as he announced a national lockdown in England on Monday due to the surge in COVID cases in the United Kingdom. The new strain in UK has been held responsible for a spike in cases, as it is much easily transmissible. Due to this development and the fact that a large part of United Kingdom, virtually the whole of United Kingdom, has been put under lockdown, Prime Minister Boris Johnson took that decision that it will not be wise to make that journey to India.
Well, on that note, we're going to slip into a very quick break, but we'll come back and focus on another issue which is brewing in 4 states which are affected by the bird flu. We'll get you all of those details on the other side.